Your thinking brain can hinder or support recovery. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 steps for you to quieten the part of your thinking brain that can get in the way of healing and recovery, and really deeply and powerfully connect to the part of you that can support healing and recovery. So if you don't know me, my name is Simon Pimenta. I had ME, CFS and fibromyalgia for 8-9 years. At one point, I couldn't walk for 1 minute. I'm in Germany at the moment, and my average number of steps for the last 7 days is about 9,000 steps. Yesterday, I walked 15,000 steps. So I went from not being able to walk for 1 minute to living my life again whilst I've been here. I've been to a concert to see Lang Lang, conducted by Daniel Barenboim. I've been on a walking tour of Berlin. I've done lots of fantastic fun stuff, and as I say, at one point my life was very limited. What helped was learning mind-body approaches, and this is something I'll talk about in this video. So I've talked in other videos about working with emotions. So in this video, I really want to dive into understanding your thinking brain. It's really important to understand it because your mind can activate the stress response. Your thoughts, your beliefs, the decisions you make, for example, the behaviours, can put your body in a state of stress. For example, let's say you're stuck in traffic and you decide that's a bad thing, you get frustrated. That's going to put your body in a state of stress. If you're driving along, someone cuts you up and you decide that they're being disrespectful, then you're going to feel angry, upset, frustrated. So stress, and in particular persistent stress, will make it more likely that you get diseases that make you sick and can keep you sick. Okay? The stress can literally put the brakes on your recovery. So there are 2 parts to your thinking brain. There's the problem solver and the protector. So let's talk about the problem solver. So the role of the problem solver is to listen to your emotional brain. Your emotional brain wants you to be safe and it wants you to be fulfilled. And when you're not meeting your needs, or when you're in a situation that doesn't feel okay in some way, it will send signals via sensations, symptoms, and emotions. So the job of the thinking brain is to make sense of those signals, those emotions, sensations, symptoms, and to decide what is the appropriate action. So for example, if someone has upset you, then you might need to communicate with them. Obviously, you've always got to discern when it's appropriate and safe to do so and when it's not. So when you listen to your emotional brain and take action, the emotional brain will send good emotions and energy, feel good feelings. You've probably had the experience of listening to your body, taking action and feeling good. For example, maybe setting a boundary with someone and feeling better for doing so. If you find it super uncomfortable to speak up, then this is something you can work on. Start small if necessary and find other ways of discharging those stuck emotions, sensations and symptoms. Because if we don't discharge them, they get stuck in the body. An example of that is maybe someone says or does something, you feel a lump in your throat. That's something I would experience sometimes. Sometimes I've experienced discomfort in my belly or tension in my neck and shoulders. And I can really notice, or have noticed, that it's really drained my energy. Okay? And by identifying the emotions that I'm experiencing and taking action, including some of the following steps, it's created a shift, a discharge of those emotions, and I felt energetically better as a result. So some of the things you can do is journaling. Just getting things out of your head onto pen and paper. I understand the research shows that there's not much difference whether you use a pen and paper or a computer. I like pen and paper, I like the physicality of it. You can move your body. So sometimes if I'm feeling there's stuck emotions in my body, maybe I'm feeling angry, upset, I'll literally shake my body. I will release a short video on that. So look out for that. So move your body. Speak to someone you trust. Express yourself through sound, through art, etc. Might be making noises. So sometimes when I'm sort of stand up and I'm shaking and I make noise, and that's a way of getting it out of your system. You could do breath work, for example, taking an inhale and a longer exhale. Some people like doing this exercise where you breathe through one nostril on a count of 5, you hold both nostrils, and then you breathe out of the other nostril, and then you repeat that a few times, okay? You might ground in nature. I love being barefoot in the garden. I'm at my aunt's at the moment, and sometimes I've laid on the grass or just sat in a chair with my socks off, and it's really nice. It feels grounding. There's good research that shows that grounding is beneficial. Okay, so walking barefoot, sitting under a tree, etc. Listening to music that matches or helps you shift your mood. As I already mentioned, shaking, bouncing, a few minutes of gentle tremoring can help release stuck emotions and sensations. Allowing yourself to cry, shout, etc. Obviously do that in a place where it's safe to do so, privately or with support. Practicing self-compassion, or practicing having a conversation with your inner child. And people, when they've done that, they've found it really powerful, that it helps release emotions. And people have said to me, actually, I feel more relaxed, I feel more energized from doing this inner child work. So receiving safe touch might be holding yourself, kind of stroking your arms, putting hands on heart and belly. Sometimes I like doing qigong in the park. People think I'm a bit crazy, but I don't really care. So that's the problem solver. Job of the problem solver is to listen to your emotional brain, take action. But we have another part, which I call the protector. And obviously the job of the protector is to protect you. However, sometimes the protector can do too good a job. It can be overprotective. This is the part that can develop limiting thinking patterns, chastising yourself, catastrophizing, overanalyzing, overthinking, worrying. These are all ways of getting in our head and disconnecting from what's going on in the body. And these thinking patterns can result in thought-generated emotions. So, previous example, driving in the car, someone cuts you up. If you say to yourself, they're disrespecting me, you're going to generate what we call thought-generated emotions of upset, anger. But that's as a result of your thinking. Okay? And that's distinct from your authentic emotions, which happen before those thought-generated emotions. And those authentic emotions are your emotional brain's authentic, unfiltered response. So if I'm driving along, someone cuts me up, maybe I might just feel shock, okay? But then I can actually use my thinking mind to decide how to interpret that experience. And I could interpret it in a way that's not very helpful, or a way that's more helpful. And these thinking patterns can result in what we call adaptive behaviours. So we either avoid situations because we feel uncomfortable. You know, I had low self-esteem at one point, so kind of social situations could feel quite uncomfortable. Some people might just avoid those kinds of situations. I was working with someone who was super bright. They were a civil servant, but they had very low self-esteem. And even though they were a really lovely, engaging person, very attractive, you know, they didn't have that self-confidence. So they would avoid social situations. And so we did some work around that, and they realised that there was stuff they could change in their way they were thinking about social situations, which meant they felt more confident. So even one thing was they were worried that someone might be rude or snarky, and it didn't occur to them that they could just say, nice talking to you, I'm just going to go and find my friend. You know, so they could change the situation. So other adaptive behaviours, addictions, that can be a way of dealing with those uncomfortable emotions. And I can recognise in myself that I kind of developed addictive, compulsive patterns as a way of avoiding uncomfortable emotions. For some people, it's binging on biscuits, chocolate, could be Netflix, could be other things, could be drugs, alcohol. Let me know if you recognise that there are some compulsive patterns. Some people spend a lot of time on their phone, and that can be a distraction. That's the next strategy. We get into distraction behaviours. We get into patterns of perfectionism, wanting to get everything right in order to get love and approval. We can get into patterns of overachieving, people-pleasing, controlling behaviours, either trying to control the environment, control other people. So some of us overdevelop our protective mode. As I say, this is an attempt to achieve safety, acceptance and love. So it can be really easy for us to inhabit this part of us, the protector, anytime we feel uncomfortable, when we experience uncomfortable sensations, symptoms, emotions. When I had ME/CFS, there were times when even having the symptoms of tiredness was very uncomfortable. So I'd really want to distract myself rather than recognise I needed to tune into what was going on in order to take appropriate action. Sometimes maybe I needed to rest, but other times actually I needed to process those emotions. So, let's say someone has said something or done something and it upsets you and you don't act on it for a number of reasons. For me, I didn't act on my emotions because I felt uncomfortable about showing my emotions and setting boundaries. I didn't think my feelings were important enough. At one point, I wasn't even very good at identifying my emotions. I was so cut off from my emotional experience. I would worry what people thought about me if I did share my emotions. I didn't want to make a fuss. I didn't really like conflict, and so I avoided it. Now, if we keep doing that, suppressing, repressing our emotions, that can cause dis-ease in our body. As I've talked about before, from a Chinese medicine perspective, it creates tension in the body and that interrupts blood flow, and that can cause illness. Okay, this dis-ease in our body can result into disease and can slow down recovery if you are dealing with a health challenge. So what can we do about the protector part of our thinking brain dominating the show and hindering recovery? The good news, I've got 5 strategies for you. Number 1, it's really important that we have compassion for ourselves and that we're just curious about what's happening rather than judging ourselves, judging our emotions, judging ourselves for having emotions, okay? So we want to be compassionate, we want to be curious about the situation, okay? When we are aware of the protector and that we're in protector mode, we can respond accordingly. So step 2, it's important to recognize where we are on the map. So are we connected to our body, so connected to our emotional brain, tuning into our emotions and processing them? Are we in problem solver mode, listening to the emotional brain, exploring what action we can take? Or number 3, we're in protector mode, overthinking, overanalyzing, etc. So we really need to notice that. The protector can be useful. Let's say I'm going to go for a walk in the woods. I might tell my aunt, who I'm staying with at the moment, where I'm going, what time I'm going to be back. All right, that's the protector doing its role in a useful way. But if I go for that walk in the woods constantly worrying about getting bitten by a mosquito or being attacked by a wild boar, there are boars in the forest nearby, then that's not really very helpful. Okay. So number 3, we can practice spotting when we're disconnecting from our body. And number 4, we can ask the question, if I am disconnecting from my body, what emotion am I experiencing? What symptom or sensation am I experiencing that I want to avoid? And what might be the message that my emotional brain is sending to me? So number 5, we can explore what our needs are by following the following steps. When you notice the desire to distract and run away from discomfort, first of all ask, what is it I need right now? Then you can brainstorm ways of meeting that need. And then choose one or more of those options that resonate and take action. The more you practice noticing when you're disconnecting from your body, the emotions, the sensations. The more you can build awareness, the more you can reconnect to your body, the more you can allow the emotions, sensations, symptoms, and the more you can respond to those signals from the emotional brain in a more resourceful way. And the more you can rewire your brain to get better at being with discomfort. And this can help your body heal. So you can either react to symptoms, emotions, boredom, upset, frustration by distracting yourself. And that can drain your energy. And it can be problematic long term if your strategy is to binge on chocolate, biscuits, etc. I knew someone who would smoke a certain drug, and he ended up in psychiatric hospital. Okay? Or you can build your capacity, your window of tolerance to those uncomfortable sensations and emotions, symptoms, and find more resourceful ways to meet your needs to support your healing. So, for example, my go-to strategy when I felt upset, frustrated, uncomfortable symptoms was to distract myself by watching an action movie or gentleman's movies. But that just drained me further because I'd get overstimulated. What I learned is that I could actually just practice techniques to help me get more comfortable with what I was experiencing. One of those techniques is the flip the switch exercise. If you'd like the PDF and audio, comment flip below. So remember, you always deserve great things in your life. You always deserve to be kind and compassionate towards yourself and to receive that from others. And if you're in a situation where someone isn't being kind and compassionate, then it's important to consider what you need to do about that. So consider, what is one way you could meet your needs today? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your takeaway from this video is. Do share it with someone who might find it helpful. If you'd like more tips, you're welcome to join my Facebook group. You're welcome to join the Resilience Group Coaching. There's no charge for that. You are welcome to make a donation. That happens usually every 2 weeks. Comment group below to join the group coaching. So in September, I am going to be starting a new Mind-Body Reconnect group course. This is going to be a 12-week course, and you get the chance to try it out. If it's not for you, you don't pay anything. I absolutely believe that what you're going to learn in the very first session is going to be super helpful. And 95% of people who do the first session say, I want to carry on because I recognise this is super helpful and super powerful. So if you'd like to know more about that, just put the word mind below and I will send you the information about the Mind-Body Reconnect course. Okay? And my goal is to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. So if you'd like to know more, comment mind below. If you've got any questions, let me know. Dare to dream big dreams. Keep going. You've got this. Wishing you great health. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now.